Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national television channel Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations, and key friendships and partnerships of India with important stakeholders that are shaping the current world order. Viewers, in this episode, we are doing a deep dive into India's relations with a very consequential partner, a big and influential bloc of countries in the Western world, the European Union. EU-India strategic partnership is entering its third decade. So the scale and the scope of cooperation is being ramped up in many, many dimensions. Why is the EU looking at India with greater attention today? And what is in it for India and the benefits that India gets from deepening the strategic partnership with the European Union? These are the important questions and themes of the show. And to take us through the discussion, I have with me two specialists on the European Union joining me. With me in the studio is Professor Silvia Bottega. Silvia Bottega is at the Jindal School of International Affairs of O.P. Jindal Global University, and she teaches courses on EU and NATO and national security issues. Welcome, Professor Bottega. Welcome to Indian Diplomacy. Also with me is Professor Sheetal Sharma, who is Associate Professor at Jawaharlal Nehru University and leads the Center for European Studies there. She's also a well-known domain expert on European issues and EU foreign policy. Professor Sharma, welcome also to Indian Diplomacy. Now, let me start with you, Professor Bottega. You have the entire College of Commissioners of the EU, which is the cabinet of the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, all of them coming in one big group to India and engaging in a lot of meaningful discussions to take the strategic partnership forward. Just the prioritization of India at this moment, is being talked about. Why so much attention towards India, and why are the Europeans so eager to take the relationship forward? So this is one of the key questions in everyone's mind. So it will be helpful if you give us a little bit of context in terms of the EU's overall foreign policy and the situation that the EU is in today.
I think it's very important for the European Union own vision of itself. A sort of inner narrative is going on for a while, has been going on for a while, specifically with the publication of the former president of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi, who last September published this important report regarding the future of the European competitiveness. And they highlighting the strong and urgent, actually he used this word, existential need for modernizing the European economy, modernizing the industry, introducing more high technology, technological partnership within the European Union, and creating this strong partnership. So the connection between the European Union and India has been going on obviously for 30 years now. The first European Union-India strategic partnership was signed in 2004, and naturally in 2025 this step. And then there was a revision in 2014, but 2025, after like 10 years, the step forward needs to be taken, not just in the classic realm of trade, but also in this new realm of raw materials, in rare earth materials, AI, and everything relating to technology. And so I think that it's a beneficial partnership for both. A sort of complementarity can be created between these two big actors, the biggest democracy, biggest markets, 1 billion, 0.4 on the one side, 450 million on the others, but with also different age. For instance, the European Union, for maintaining its social welfare system, need to spark its growth. And it needs to be done in a concerted way within the European Union, and specifically with big partners, which somehow are au pair with the European Union. And India, absolutely, in the Indo-Pacific is the natural first actor to look at, also in the framework of the strategy for cooperation in the Indo-Pacific that European Union issued in 2021. So there are many projects, many investment, foreign direct investment, but also common platform to through which we can together tackle the major also global issues in terms of maritime, in terms of cyber security, in terms of public infrastructure security, counter-terrorism, and these are also, and obviously all the sector of cooperation in defense, both maritime, land defense, but also space. So it's a huge opportunity for both these entities, which are very complementary because of the diversity that they represent within themselves. India on the one side, the European Union on the other. So I think there is much to work on, and the scenario looks promising.
Yeah, coming to Professor Sharma, there's a lot of media hype around the Trump factor, and they're all saying that the Europeans are now warming up to India more and wanting to press the accelerator on the India partnership because the US President Donald Trump is applying so much pressure on the Europeans on everything from the Ukraine war to trade war and so many other factors, because he is not the traditional type of a coalition builder, and the Europeans are miffed and upset, and therefore they need India more. I mean, this is the narrative you are hearing a lot. But from what Professor Bottega is saying, there's some structural and long-term reasons why the EU needs India. So your thoughts on why the partnership is being revved up at the broader level? We can go into the nitty-gritty of specific elements of this strategic partnership and what is being announced and what is going to be taken to the next level. But why do you think there is this buzz? And the EU Commission President during her visit said that we should not have any constraints or limits whatsoever, and sky is the limit. So why are they emphasizing it or highlighting the India aspect so much? In your view, is Trump factor so critical, or is it something else?
I'll begin by saying that this is a spectacular display or manifestation of the kind of intent to deepen, widen and intensify the relationship between India and the European Union. There are a couple of reasons for that, and we'll certainly come on to the Trump card, which is now sending shockwaves all across the world. But let me begin by saying that India and European Union have been in a strategic partnership since 2004, and 2 decades have got over. There was always a kind of intention and motivation to come together. However, the pace and the frequency with which, the intensity with which these 2 entities could have come together was somehow not stepping up, or it was not touching the final point. But now the shift in the geopolitical conditions have created a conducive ground for both of them to come together. Now, let me bring the US administration and the narrative that you were just talking about. The narrative is that Trump has abandoned NATO or transatlantic partnership. And Europe has been facing the Ukraine war has been happening on its eastern door for last 3 years. Now, there was no possible solution in sight. But now with Trump throwing his weight around, there are possible outcomes. We can just imagine what could come out. But seeing the uncertainty, there are a couple of situations that can emerge. One is that there is a possibility of Ukraine surrendering to Russia, the regions which Russia now occupies, and the rest goes with Ukraine. The second, that there is a prolonged stalemate if Zelensky or Russia or any of the European Union partners are not interested in having a negotiation on the terms that Trump is dictating. The third one, that escalation of war, the conflict moves beyond Ukraine. The fourth one is that there is a change of regime either in Russia or in Ukraine, and then there is a end to the conflict in sight. And the final one could be, that there is a kind of transaction, the transaction which Trump wants to make with Ukraine. In all these cases, whatever the outcome may be, it is the European Union or the European continent which is going to face some of the severe consequences of it. Now, what would be the consequence? It would certainly embolden Russia in the sense that whatever is the outcome, unless the kind of negotiation is done on the conditions which both Ukraine and the European Union agrees to. Now, if in case Russia is emboldened, then Europe, seeing a sense of a rejection of transatlantic partnership, is now on its own feet. The lesson that European Union or the European continent needs to learn out of this is that they have to make their own security strong in the wake of Russian aggression, maybe in future, if in case things do not turn out to be the way they want them to be. Now what? I always think, that there are 2 permanent members of the UN Security Council in Europe. They both are nuclear powers. And at the same time, the individual member states themselves are quite capable and quite strong in their defense and military establishments. Say, for example, Spain, even Finland, which has recently joined NATO. So it's just a matter of time that they consolidate themselves together and put a strong military and defense architecture in order to overcome the fears that the transatlantic partnership is weakening, and they have to defend themselves on their own. Point number 2, increasing the defense budget is very important, which all the European Union countries are going to do. But then the story does not end only up to the security and defense aspect of it. It also involves trade, technology, connectivity, and global partnerships. President Xi said that, there are 3 central pillars on the basis of which this partnership has to be seen. The first one is trade and technology. The second, of course, security and defense. And the third, global partnerships and connectivity. Now, all these 3 are interconnected, Sri, in my view. And that is why it is very important that you begin by trade with like-minded nations where you have convergence of values, similarity of principles on the basis of which you operate on global arena, and look for partners which are reliable and trusted. And time again, reliability, trusted, friendship, convergence of values have come up in the discussion, and this was very clear that both entities are now open to intensify, widen, and deepen their relationship. It begins, of course, with trade, but then there is a lot more on the table which can be discussed in the future course of interactions.
And on trade, Professor Sharma, I mean, one of the headline takeaways of the EU Commission President and the College of Commissioners visit to India was that they are now, the leaders have directed the negotiating teams on both sides to finalize the long pending free trade agreement before the end of 2025. Now, as far as I can recall, this started some 17, 18 years ago, and there have been many stops and starts. So presumably the tariffs and the protectionism of Trump is maybe one factor only in pushing the EU to maybe fast forward the FTA with India. And what else? I mean, obviously they want the market access, and like Professor Bottega was saying, they want also higher economic growth through enhanced exports and such things. So your take on the FTA, because people have almost given up hope on it because they're saying there are just too many intractable issues and we are not able to seal the deal finally. So, but it looks like there is some new urgency, and this visit seems to be pushing in the direction.
There is certainly an urgency, and at the same time, Trump factor is also playing some role. I wouldn't say it's over dominating, but at the same time, there are certain pushes from that direction also. See, Sri, I would put it like this. Long period of time, more than a decade, number of rounds of talk, FTA not going through. Now, there are certain reasons, hurdles, which are not as massive as they have been shown to. And it is the political will, the desire of the leaders to overcome these differences, maybe negotiation here and there, give and take for both the entities, but which becomes a win-win situation for both of them. But at the same time, we have to see, the tariff war, which has been started by the Trump 2.0 administration, there is a kind of scenario, imposition of tariffs on the other part, reciprocity in terms of how much you do, we do at the same time. But then this does not count into the specificity, the needs of the developing world, say Global South for that matter, or India for that matter, and the kind of capabilities and capacities that the developing world has. So that is why going and measuring everyone with the same yard is something which is problematic in tariffs. Now, this is where a kind of mature discussion needs to happen between the two entities, and here I'm talking about India and the EU, in order to look at the respective capacities and capabilities in terms of, tariff is one thing, the other one is the non-tariff barriers. And these are related to intellectual property rights, patenting, use of certain kind of chemicals, regulatory frameworks, standards about labor laws. So we need to come on to certain kind of convergence or on the same page in order to see that what is in India's interest, how we respond to the kind of regulations or these so-called standards which the EU has set up, say carbon border mechanisms, and all these things are very important. But I do not see that if in case the political leaders have expressed their desire to overcome these differences and at least come on to a point where FTA could be signed finally, the final version comes out. So I don't think it's too far. If in case the political will and intent is there, it would certainly be seen through.
Yeah, I mean, we are very hopeful indeed that the FTA finally crosses the finish line. Professor Bottega, now apart from trade, the trade is now being bracketed along with technology in the India-EU partnership, and there's a Trade and Technology Council, and they have come up with a whole range of announcements about joint research and joint development and cooperation, very advanced technological fields like artificial intelligence, green hydrogen. We saw the bus in which the EU commissioners came to meet the Prime Minister. It was a hydrogen fueled bus, and that was to indicate that there is a whole focus on ecological issues between the two sides. And quantum computing and electric vehicle batteries. They're talking about very, very advanced areas. And already, as you know, India has advanced cooperation in this field with the US. They call it ISET, Initiative for Critical and Emerging Technologies. So this Trade and Technology Council is like a counterpart to the ISET with the Europeans. So could you talk a little bit about advanced tech, high-tech cooperation, and why the EU is looking to India for this, especially in this area? And what is the mutual benefit that we can reap from this technology-based cooperation? Why is technology becoming so central in this partnership?
Yes, Sreeram, it's true that there should be also a sort of might be a sort of model, the one that has taken place already between India and United States. Who are starting, I've been starting investing, in India, they are manufacturing chips, they're manufacturing technological products, and they are integrating and also manufacturing a lot in relation to the space technologies and defense industries. So there is a sort of open up of the Indian ecosystem for this kind of external investment in a critical sector, the sector of defense and security. So for the European Union as well, I think it should be a sort of an ecosystem. And if it exists already with other countries, obviously, when we talk about the European Union, it means that there should be a regulated common platform. Obviously, single European countries are already investing in these sectors individually as individual states in India, and there is an exchange and a collaboration at bilateral level. But what the European Union can offer as a unique platform is a harmonious forms of production for major mega projects that can really have the same collaboration in an integrated and complementary way. Obviously, this needs also to respond to the European Union values, which is sustainability, which is the protection of specific regulation. For instance, we have seen a demand also after these meetings regarding the regulation for AI or the regulation for the investment, the FDI. So there is this kind of also can be obstacles, but also a guarantee for transparency, for security, for accountability as well. Specifically when we talk about, for instance, AI systems, they are very important for the European Union, for instance, also in the energy sector in terms of, forecasts about production, about necessity and demand of energy. So it can have a huge implementation, not just in the industrial system, but also, for instance, in the health system. So it's a cross-cutting set of technologies that can have their own space production in India through, obviously, investment from the European Union, but can be also vice versa. Bilaterally, these collaboration, as I said, happen specifically in the defense space sector, but also really in the, and the submarine cable connectivity and these kind of important, areas. Also, India and the European Union can are focusing a lot also in the IMEC, for instance, in terms of connectivity. So the common production and the investment in this sector and the dialogue and cooperation are essential for having an harmonious and also secured forms of connectivity, which is maritime, which is railway based, but also connecting also the space above somehow these areas of connectivity. So it should be something that not just then will take place between the European Union and India, but needs to involve all the other countries in these areas of connection, which
Yeah.
is, as I said, in a various domain, which are domain which needs the security as well. So that is also another, for instance, sector of cooperation that has
Yes.
been debated within this
Yeah,
meeting.
and the IMEC corridor, which you're mentioning, the middle portion, the east leg of it is with the Middle East, and then the northern sector is with Europe. So we're very hopeful that the connectivity projects, transcontinental connectivity projects, will go forward. Professor Sharma, last word on the defense and security. There's been an announcement that the EU is now going to build a future-oriented security and defense partnership with India, which is more advanced than what we already have. I mean, we've done some joint military exercises in the Indian Ocean region in the past, and individual countries, like Professor Bottega was also saying, on defense, for example, with France, we have a very thriving relationship, and we are also trying to do more with the Germans and so on. But this idea of a full-scale security and defense pact or partnership with a focus on Indo-Pacific, this seems to be something new. Apparently, it is going to be on the same scale as what the EU is already doing with Japan and South Korea, which are like core US allies in Asia. So it's in that context, I'd like you to speak a little bit about the Indo-Pacific cooperation with the EU. Obviously, the EU has more intent, but do they have the capabilities? Because on one hand, Russia is their #1 security challenge. They are quite bogged down by now the burden of supporting Ukraine. If the US withdraws from supporting Ukraine, then the whole responsibility lies on the EU shoulders, right? So they have to ramp up defense production, everything for the European theater, right? So to what extent can they be effective in defense and security with India, and especially in this region, in the Indo-Pacific? And they have announced that they're joining the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative of India. There's also a non-defense element where they're saying they will do projects jointly with India in third countries in the Indo-Pacific and in Africa. So it all sounds good, but really, does the EU have the means to, or can it implement, walk the talk, you feel, in the defense and security in the Indo-Pacific?
Sri, it has to be understood in two different ways. One is with India, the security, strategic and defense ties with India, and the other one in the Indo-Pacific. Now, I would begin by the Indo-Pacific first, and the priority areas identified by the European Union in its strategy for the Indo-Pacific they're very clear-cut. They talk about sustainability and inclusive partnership. They talk about ocean governance. It talks about digital governance, security and defense, human security, and all those aspects. There are 7 priority areas. Now, this is very important for the European Union to play an important role in the Indo-Pacific because of the trade interest and the volume of trade that they have with the countries in the region. So one is that aspect of it. The second is that over a period of time, as we have seen the transatlantic partnership being neglected by Trump, and what are the consequences for the entire continent on the other side of the Atlantic, on the east side, it is going to create ripples all across the world. So the same happens with Indo-Pacific. If in case he also wants to withdraw his attention from this part of the world, I don't know how the things are going to play out vis-a-vis China. And if in case the second or the second Cold War, the second version of the Cold War emerges, then it would certainly not be Russia. It would be the China, which would be the main rival that US is trying to balance in the region as well. Particularly defense with India. Yes, there is a need, and now it is driven more by the circumstances for Europe particularly. We have always been, surrounded by the kind of neighbors that we know, and it's no longer a secret. We are modernizing our defense. Of course, we are looking for partners and diversification of our imports of military equipment. But at the same time, now the need of the hour for EU is also to step up its defense budget, to strengthen its military, to modernize, and to scale up its entire military and defense architecture. In this case, both India and European Union, they deal at 2 levels. I again say this because one is at the bilateral relationship with individual countries. We have with France, we have with UK, and we have to a certain extent with other European Union countries. But at the same time, at the EU level, if the frameworks are operating at the EU level, it becomes easy for India to operate again at the other level, because the 2 entities, supranational and the national, if they are in congruence with each other, it becomes easy for India to transact with European Union. And if the member states of the supranational body are in congruence with the supranational body, then again, it's very easy. The frameworks are clear, the transactions are clear, the norms are clear, and the intent moves in the right direction. And that is why I think both of them are going to benefit from each other's partnership in future.
Right. So viewers, from this discussion, what we can see is that there are many legs on which the EU-India strategic partnership is going forward. But what is critical is that they have identified certain areas where the convergence of interests is maximum. So be it defense, be it trade, be it technology, be it connectivity, on all of these, there's hardly any conflict of interest between India and the European Union. And if the free trade agreement gets inked, as the political leaders have directed the two sides, the negotiators, that will be really like the acme of the relationship, because so far we have probably not seen the heights of it, as Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commission President who visited India, was saying that this is just the beginning and the best part of the partnership lies ahead, and we can really maximize the benefits and the gains from both sides. And it is a troubled world, as the Europeans are saying, and they are of course quite rattled by the Trump factor, but it's not the only reason why they are looking to India. And that's an important lesson for us, because sometimes we are carried away by the momentary news cycle. Because right now it's the pressure that Trump is applying on the Europeans, but in the longer run, 4 years down the line, there will be no Trump, but there will still be an EU-India strategic partnership. So the key point is that we need to maximize the gains. It may not make a headline news, some of the nitty-gritty, but it's very important. Each of these add up to something big. And as Ursula von der Leyen was saying, that the EU-India, it's more than the sum of the whole is more than the sum of the parts. Meaning there's something bigger that we can achieve, not just in terms of bilateral give and take and benefit, but also to reshape the world. And of course, we will be very keen for the EU to reshape the Indo-Pacific. Let me thank Professor Bottega and Professor Sharma for valuable insights. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So viewers, European Union has realized the full importance of India and is pressing ahead on so many different dimensions. And India, of course, very much welcomes this. We believe in a multipolar world order. If Europe is building itself into an alternative power center or even an autonomous power center from the US, let's say, then it's something that we have no objections to, and we believe that we can deal with the Europeans as themselves, not as part of some NATO alliance or just as a Western alliance. So going forward, I think India, EU, we would like these to be two important pillars of stability in an unstable world, as the leaders of both sides have been saying. So let's cheer for this relationship, and let's not underestimate the European Union. As my guest said today, they are under pressure. They have been suffering the consequences of economic slowdown and weakness, but end of the day, it's still a very powerful bloc, and there's so much for us in India to take and give with them. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.